Hey everyone, it's Boise and welcome to my final video of 2022. This has pretty much been my breakthrough year of CTR as it's the first year I've played the game competitively. There are so many of my friends I have to thank for helping me along the way, not to mention all players in the CTR community who have run these tracks before me. Without your videos, I never would have been able to figure out these lines and strategies on my own. I wanted to share with you all my top 10 most meaningful runs of the year and briefly explain the significance behind them. What's interesting is that my two highest ranked times are not on this list as they are unrestricted runs that I don't feel are good enough to belong in my top 10. Feel free to let me know in the comments how you feel about this list and if you think there was a particular run more worthy of belonging in this video. Without further ado, let's dive into my top 10 best of the year. Number 10, Tiger Temple. About halfway through the year I got a 123 thanks to the grass Poleswood. However, it was a horrible run because I was driving with my D-pad on a remat which was just ugly to watch. This is what inspired my change to analog while driving on Poleswood tracks, while still using the D-pad to do the tech. So I did a bunch of other tracks and eventually came back to this with the sub 123. What I like about this run is that all three of my speed ghosts are pretty bad, so I somewhat had to rely on my driving for this run. Not great, but still probably the best I've driven on the track. Number 9, Crash Cove, the game's most iconic track. This is probably my most optimised run as it has two of my best splits. I have two pretty bad mistakes in this run. On all three laps I take too much of the water entering the shortcut and lap 2 I go stupidly wide around the last corner. Other than that, I'm very happy with this run. I think Crash Cove is one of the best tracks in the game. Someday I will learn the bridge grind and push this as far as I can. On a side note, I just want to add that my music choice for the video of this run might just make it one of the best videos on this list. Number 8, Turbo Track. This one was very hard to rank on this list. Getting the 126 was a great achievement for me, however it was a very bittersweet moment knowing how much better I could have done. Most runs I failed on that final lap 3 hairpin were pacing for around a 7x. So when I got a bad input going around the final turn and crossed the line with a 99, I was very tempted to keep going. But ultimately, I chose to move on while I was still enjoying the track and I know I can always come back to it even stronger. This track is basically all about hairpins and reserves. Get those two things right and the rest of the run is straightforward. My biggest areas to improve are my lap 1 strats, which make me go too slow. I don't frame hot well, so cutting across the grass loses me a bit of time, and I don't do the hairpins consistently well. Number 7, Tiny Arena. Okay, so this is the one run on this list that I haven't actually posted yet because it's the track I'm currently grinding and going for a 248. This run is all about a change of heart. Last year, I absolutely hated this track. I thought it was impossibly boring and refused to learn the track for this reason. My level of hate for this track was so bad that I never even bothered to watch anyone time trial it, so I had no idea how to do it. Before learning how to do the track, I would drift boost around most corners. Until one day I was watching an itemless tournament where the race was on Tiny Arena and I thought, okay, this is kinda cool. I slowly fell in love with the track and I can now say that Tiny Arena is one of my favourite tracks to watch a professional time trial. Even though this is a long track, I'm having a lot of fun trying to get closer to the walls and flying around all the corners. Number 6, Polar Pass. Most of you watching will know how much I love this track. Now, this time may not present as one of my best runs, however I think that this is a run that highlights my level of kart control very well. If my lines were stronger in a lot of areas and I had better reserve strats, I can confidently say I would be able to get a 156. Another problem I have on this track is taking the big boy shortcut as I don't really know where the wall sits, so I have to learn this to optimise my runs. This track holds a lot of sentimental value to me as when I got the 159 at the end of last year, that was my first ever sub goal. So I guess you can say Polar Pass is where it all began for me. Number 5, Mystery Caves. So this is another track that I used to struggle with. During last year's World Cup, I realised that this track was getting picked in just about every match. So I decided to try and learn it, and funny enough, this became one of my strongest tracks. What's interesting though is that there's no part of this track I would say I do particularly well. In fact, there's a lot of areas that I'm bad at, like the shortcut and the whole final section of the track from the double turtles. So I can only put my success on this track down to consistency. Watching other players time trial Mystery Caves really helped me to understand the lines of the track, and then it just became about trying to optimise my reserves. To have gotten such a respectable time on one of the game's most popular tracks definitely means a lot to me. Number 4, Nina's Nightmare. My love for this track is simply because of the satisfying feeling when you hit that grass and get a really good speed ghost. Unfortunately for me, when time trialing this track I messed up what could have been the best lap I'll ever get in the game. After getting an insane speed ghost I didn't follow it onto the final uphill of grass entering the forest, and then of course I clipped the fence going over the shortcut. So you want to know the secret to getting good at Nina's? It's luck. I think there's a certain way to jump out of the mansion that helps with the speed ghost, and then it's just about hitting the right spots on the grass and knowing where not to go. For me, my ultimate goal in CTR is a 139 on this track, which I'll be able to achieve with better lines, which in the past was really hard for me because like I mentioned earlier, I have to drive analog on the old Poleswood tracks. Number 3, Rouge Tubes. This is the only unrestricted run on this list. It had to be on it though. I didn't know any other CTR players at the time of getting this, but trust me, getting a run in under a minute meant everything to me. The craziest thing is that I got this at a time when I wasn't good at the game. I watched a few videos on YouTube and taught myself how to Poleswood. I consistently adapted my strats to go faster and faster through the tubes. After a bit over a month, someone commented on my video and told me about the silent landing strat, which I never would have gotten the sub without. When I messed up the 58 run, it was the worst feeling. It still hurts to this day. It was nothing but a complete and total choke, trying to go straight up the hill without going near the wall and killing all my speed. But I have to say, when I dived to the corner of the finish line and saw that 59 pop up on my screen, it was the most incredible feeling I've ever experienced in the game. Number 2, Dingo Canyon. I attribute a lot of my success time trialing to this track. I could never frame hop, so I was terrible at the shortcut, but I was so determined to get a 124. So when you can't do the shortcut, the only way the 124 is possible is with good driving. Dingo Canyon is one of my favourite tracks in the game. I think it's fair to say it's also one of my strongest. I back my lines more than I would say I do on most, if not any other track. Some of you will remember me leaving this track months ago and coming back to it. I was very hard on myself once I got close to the sub, and coming back to it was very difficult for me. My hops at the start of lap 1 were decent for me, but it's followed with several bad mistakes throughout the course of the lap. Laps 2 and 3 are probably 2 of the best laps I've done in the game, even with that stupid mistake of mine to avoid hitting the rock at the end of the shortcut lap 3. And number 1 is of course Dragon Mines. Now some of you will know that this track pushed me to my absolute breaking point. Some of the areas of the track that I was finding particularly difficult was crossing that little off-road section at the end of the track entering laps 2 and 3. I was square cancelling there a lot, I was getting picked up in the water zone, and I was failing the shortcut a lot on lap 3, whether I was driving into the wall entering the shortcut or I was crashing into the wall on the way out before exiting the shortcut. When I started going for the sub at the 114 flat, I was playing for around about 6 hours a day and it was doing my head in, so eventually I eased it back to playing for an hour every couple of days, and I felt a lot better about it, and that's when I was finally able to get the sub.